Today, as you all know, I'm an attorney here in Maryland, been practicing for 28 years in family law. Today, I'm going to go over the factors that father and mother have to do to determine child support. Obviously, you seek child support in Maryland if the parties are separated and they're not living under the same roof, and one party who has physical custody or primary custody of the minor child or children in Maryland would seek child support. Now today, what I'm going to go over with you all is how the law and the legislature in Maryland has determined that child support will be determined. It is a formula, and the factors that are involved are each party's gross income. That includes their income from any position they have, salary. Also, income is also in Maryland determined on other types of amounts that you earn, such as capital gains income, income from rental income, and under the statute, there's various other forms of income. But to keep this simple today, what you do is if you're both W-2 employees, we put into the child support calculator your gross income. Now that is before deducting taxes. And then that's what gross income means. Now after that, what we do is we determine if there's any child care. We put the two incomes in, and that's one factor. The second factor is that we look at if there's any child care expense. Now, if you have a child less than 6 years old before going to elementary school, normally that expense is quite high, especially here in Montgomery County and other counties throughout the state of Maryland. Child care can run somewhere between $800 to $1,600 or even up to $2,000 a month, depending on the program. We have to put that amount in that is paid for each child, okay? And then what we do is we look at the health insurance expense. Whoever pays for the health insurance expense for the child, we determine that by the exact amount that whoever is taking it out of their income from their employer normally. We figure out the exact amount that actually is the cost for the child. For instance, if you have health insurance and you're the mother, and the insurance policy is that you individually would pay per month $180, but if you add a child and that expense is, let's say, $375, then the difference between the $375 and the amount that you would have to pay individually would be the amount that we would put into the child support calculator as the amount that is the expense for the child health insurance expense. Now, these three things that I brought up are the main things to determine child support. There are other things that can determine child support, like for instance, if you have a special needs child, or you have a fixed expense per month that the child incurs due to health expense or other type of thing, or if, for instance, if you and the other parent have agreed to have the child go to a private school, that can also be added in as an expense, as a factor into child support. That can also be a very highly litigated issue, for instance, regarding going to private schools, because if one party doesn't want to have the child go to private school, then the issue could be litigated whether the court will say that expense does come in or not, because one party would say that the child doesn't go to private school, the other says they do, and then one party could argue, well, we had established that before and it's been going on for a while, and the court should allow that, and that the parties can afford it. Either both parties can afford to incur that, expense of private school for the child. So if you look at all those factors, then the main factor that the court looks at is that the biggest factor in figuring out the calculation is how many overnights the child or children have with each party. So what we have to do is we have to actually put in the number of overnights, because in Maryland it is based on overnights. We would then put in the number of overnights in a year with one party compared to the other party, and then determine from there what the child support would be for the party that has to pay. Now, in Maryland, child support is a very, very logical thing. What they do is, if you have a party that has more overnights with one parent compared to the other, then generally speaking, that party would be able to collect child support from the other party. But the variance can also depend on obviously the income of the parties. So if you make 50,000 and you're the party that has more overnights and the other party makes 70,000, then the party that's making the 70,000 would obviously be paying more towards the child support, and because you have more overnights. So basically, child support is based on the factors I've given you today. It runs on those four factors, and it's a pretty logical way that Maryland calculates it. There's many times that a party or a client will ask me, can we get a variance? Generally speaking, if you are over a certain amount, threshold amount that Maryland determines that both parties make over that threshold, then there can be a variance. But what the child support calculator does is that they have determined from the threshold amount a established variance going above that for parties that are above that. Now, the calculator determines how that the variance goes up as the incomes of the parties go up. Now, if you're below that threshold, you could normally the court doesn't allow for a variance. If you're above the threshold, there can be a variance. The only time you can have a variance if you're below the threshold is if you show to the court that there is a specific legitimate reason that, like for instance, if one party is picking up the camp expense for the summer, and they want to pay, let's say, $200 less a month compared to what they were supposed to pay. Let's say they're supposed to pay $1,000, but they want to pay $800 because they pick up the camping expense for the child over the summer, and that's an agreement that the parties come to. You can go into court and explain that to a judge, and they would allow you to have a variance of the child support calculation. Now, generally speaking, the issues of child support, if you are both W-2 employees and straightforward on your rental incomes and other amounts that are determinative, then it's straight figured out what the calculation of child support would be. The only issue then is where we litigate child support cases is that if one party alleges the other party is making a lot of cash income and not showing it on their W-2s or showing it on their tax returns, and let's say one party's running a 7-Eleven and not reporting all their cash income, then the other party would want to go in and litigate and do a full discovery through the child support litigated case. Those are the simple types of issues that can happen in child support. But if you have a straightforward 2 employees with a W-2 and you know what the custody arrangement is, then it's a pretty straightforward thing in Maryland to determine child support. You can always contact my office, we can run those numbers, and we can also litigate the child support issues that can come up for instance, if one party has to pay for the private school of the child, or if somebody's paying, like I said earlier, is getting paid under the table and underreporting their income. And those are the types of issues that do come up in child support. So it also, a lot of people do discuss, well, I'm seeking custody, how is it going to affect my child support, how many overnights do I need to get to determine the child support. I always advocate as a lawyer that you should always determine custody based on what is in the best interest of the child, and not really based on what the child support calculation determines. So that is, as an advocate for children, I always advocate whatever is in the best interest of the children. To ask or seek a variance of the child support calculation is always an argument we can make, and I can help you through that if that's what you're seeking. And I just wanted to go over these simple facts today with you. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to call my office, and our office number is 301-315-0001, and we are open 24/7 basically. I'm always available, and we will get back to you as soon as possible at any time you give us a call. Thank you. I don't know how that was.